be married. You can do both. Contemporary art.
No, that's just an advertisement.
Quiet. Today you just listen. What will the future scholars see when they study us? A portrait of women today? There you are, ladies. The perfect likeness of a Wellesley graduate, magna cum laude, doing exactly what she was trained to do. Slide. A Rhodes Scholar. I wonder if she recites Chaucer while she presses her husband's shirt's slide. Now you physics majors can calculate the mass and volume of every meatloaf you make. Slide. A girdle to set you free. What does that mean?
Look at this mother. She's smiling. Is she happy? She looks happy. So what does it matter?
That need and that demand to question your responses, to question yourself, to question your professors, that is what happens in college. And until that became a priority in American lives, I don't think that shift happened.
Well, as a young girl in the 50s, the role of women primarily was to be in the home and raising children in the community that I grew up in. As the years passed and we hit the 60s and the 70s, the role of women changed dramatically. And by the time I hit high school, there was an expectation that women would be working.
I was born in the early 1960s. When my children were real young, I took a job that kind of fit in and around taking care of the children as a coach. And some of the women that I worked with were maybe 10 years older than I was. I never felt like I had to absolutely prove that I was going to be a breadwinner above all. But I felt like I was really free to do whatever I wanted to do.
The neighborhood I lived in, there was primarily Catholic and people had large families. There was only one woman I can think of who worked. We admired her and thought that she was somebody to be like. I think with the passage of time and watching all the mothers who were bored out of their minds with that kind of life, the idea of getting out into the world and seeing what careers there were was more and more appealing.
Well, when I was growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she, just did all the stuff around the house, took us every place. I mean, my dad didn't do much around the house at all. I mean, that was all up to my mom. My dad worked. We were just talking about Thanksgiving dinner and how none of us kids helped Grandma, and my dad never did. I mean, he didn't do anything. It was all up to her to put on the whole meal. I can remember when I was probably 14 or 15 when he sat me down and showed me an account that he had started for my college fund and told me I could be anything I wanted to be. People were very encouraging, especially going to college, and I originally was going to study accounting, and everybody thought that was great, that a female was going into business.
Absolutely. I grew up with a father of the 50s. Absolutely. My mother was far more able to organize, to cook, to orchestrate. So there were definite gender roles, but they weren't treated as sacred. If anything, I think my father wished that he had those skills. But at the same time, as children, we were, if anything, we were encouraged in the opposite way. And I think my dad kind of liked the fact that I tended to be more interested in some of the traditional male roles.
The Catholic education at the time that I went, which was the 50s and early 60s, was very much about women being role-bound and being in the home, the keeper of the house, the one who raised the children and got all the meals on the table, who managed the education of the children, and the fathers all were out working. The nuns were very strict with most of the girls, as I remember, as to, we want you to excel in home economics, we want you to take it as a class. If you're not going to be a homemaker, you should consider being a nun. We cleaned, I remember with great resentment, my younger brother's bathroom, and we're told that boys do not clean, and you will go downstairs and you will clean your brother's room and clean his bathroom, which never seemed to make a lot of sense, but that was the idea.
I think my dad particularly, both my parents, but particularly my dad, was really intent on instilling a message in me of Rita, you can do anything. When we go out west, I liked to climb, and it frightened my mother. I think my dad was proud of it. My mother would try to get me to come back away. My father would probably almost encourage it. And I think that those little things made me feel like that I was as capable as anybody else.
My father had real expectations that I would get an education. His hope was not just that we would graduate from high school, but that we would go to college, girls and boys. It didn't matter to him. But his job took him to many countries of the world, and I think that he had a more cosmopolitan view of what the world was than my mother did.
I got a lot of encouragement to not define myself by whether or not I had a boyfriend. I absolutely wanted to be a mother. I absolutely wanted to be a part of taking care of children. I don't know that I ever saw that as something that would limit me, but it was something that I definitely was choosing, was embracing, didn't feel any pressure particularly at all.
Well, my husband helps around the house. We both worked outside of the home when we were married, so we pretty much split all of the household chores half and half. So we were equally responsible for taking care of the house and cooking and cleaning and all of that stuff. Your dad took a very active role in raising you and do all of the things that my dad never did.
We wanted, your dad and I both, you to have a sense of how a home is kept, but didn't necessarily feel that you needed to be the one to do that. We really wanted you to have a good education, and we wanted you to have the freedom to pursue what you think is important.
I think overall, we keep progressing toward wider definitions of genders, wider definitions of what family is. Family is not, in this day and age, only man, woman, and children. If the pendulum swings too far to only self-sufficiency matters, one of the things that we lose is really caring about another person as a human.
I think the ideal is to have a blend of the two, and I think most women would like that. The idea of managing your home because you want to, and you still have the freedom to pursue your work or your profession, the thing that you love.
A career, I think, will a lot of times take a back seat, and it's not because you're not worth a career. I think it's because you're worth a family. And I don't think that you have to make the decision to put your career behind you and to not have that. But I also don't think that you have to make the decision to continue on with a career that isn't very fulfilling when a family would be more fulfilling for you. I still think that women fulfill a lot of gender roles, but maybe now it's because they want to and not because they were told they needed to.